Of the 6 kings of the Babylonian Empire, the 3 following Nebuchadnezzar only reigned for a total of 6 years. From Nebuchadnezzar's death in 562 BC to 556 BC, the kings Amel-Marduk, Neriglissar, and Labashi-Marduk attempted to maintain Babylon's prestige seen under its first 2 kings. The 3rd king, the one who succeeded Nebuchadnezzar, Amel-Marduk, was not the firstborn son of the former ruler, and it is thought that he was such a poor king that he was quickly supplanted by Neriglissar. The Babylonian author Berosus writes of him that he ruled capriciously and had no regard for the laws. As a result of this, he was murdered after only a 2-year reign and replaced by his brother-in-law Neriglissar. Amel-Marduk's only known political action is recorded in the book of 2 Kings and Jeremiah, which state that after 37 years of captivity, he released the Judean king, King Jehoiakim, from prison. His namesake, meaning man of Marduk, also indicated his religious affiliation. The 3rd king of Babylon was so infatuated with Marduk and the upkeep of his temples that he was even criticized for it by his contemporaries, including accusations of neglecting his own family. Apparently, he took the advice of his grandfather, Nabopolassar, very literally in serving Marduk constantly. He died in the summer of 560 BC and was replaced by Neriglissar, who had married into the royal family, probably through Nebuchadnezzar's daughter, Cassava. His reign would last 3 years and 8 months, during which he undertook several building projects and led one military campaign against Cilicia and southern Anatolia. These campaigns were successful, and Neriglissar destroyed the royal cities and island fortress of the king Apuasu. He is known to have commissioned repairs to Marduk's ziggurat in Babylon, and also to have made repairs to the ziggurat of the sun god in the city of Sippar. The sun god, Shamash, was one of the Anunnaki, a class of gods sent by Marduk to reside on earth and in the underworld. He was worshipped alongside 2 other astral deities, Nana, the moon god, and Ishtar, the goddess of Venus. It was even said of Shamash that he was the one who gave Hammurabi the ancient law codes of Babylon. Neriglissar's death ushered in the rule of his son Labashi-Marduk, who was young and thought to be unqualified for the responsibility. He was thus opposed by ambitious court officials and was killed off very quickly. It was said of him by his successor Nabonidus that he was untutored in proper behavior and ascended the throne against the will of the gods. The last native Babylonian king to rule the city was named Nabonidus, whose name means the god Nabu is praised. He was a court official of some 50 or 60 years old when he took the throne and was not of the royal family. Though attributed to the downfall of Babylon, by many accounts he was a successful ruler, with his son Belshazzar assisting as regent. Nabonidus commissioned great buildings at the cult centers and further extended the territory of the empire to Arabia, where he established a pseudo-capital at the oasis of Tema. Nabonidus reigned there for 10 years, while his son Belshazzar ruled in Babylon. However, the last Babylonian king was a controversial figure in his own kingdom, as he is thought to have primarily worshipped the god of the moon, Nana, rather than Marduk. His mother, Adad-Gopi, originated from the city of Haran, the cult center of the moon god, and was possibly one of its priestesses. Her long life of 102 years meant that she lived into the 9th year of Nabonidus' reign, and likely influenced him to worship the god Nana. This separated him from his people, who saw his passion for the moon god as a provocation against Marduk, although he surely honored Marduk with new temples as well. While on his sojourn in Arabia, Nabonidus did not return to Babylon for 10 years, during which time the sacred Akitu festival for the new year was not practiced. This festival could only be held with Marduk's representative, the king, present, and this likely embittered the population of Babylon. They are said to have grown concerned that Nabonidus intended to replace Marduk as the king of the gods with Nana, the moon god. However, his successful military campaigns may be evidence against this. Continuing the war in Cilicia, he took back 2,850 prisoners for the service of Marduk during the Akitu festival in the second year of his reign. He continued into Syria, Edom, and expanded the Babylonian territory to its greatest extent. Though dedicated to Nana, Nabonidus is known to have commissioned extensive temple-building projects, ziggurat repairs, and shrine construction to a variety of gods and goddesses. The efforts of Nebuchadnezzar to find some of the ancient temple sites of the Akkadians under Sargon in the ruins of Hammurabi's temples were outdone by Nabonidus. He had men search for years for these ruins and carefully excavate their foundations so as to rebuild them in the precise likeness of the original. He employed magicians who used extipacy, the method of divination through observing the organs of sacrificed animals to determine the proper dimensions of the ancient sites. He also built at Ur, which was a cult center of the moon god, and allowed their priests tax-exempt status and excused them from obligatory state service. The Great Ziggurat of Ur, which was originally built around 2100 BC, was a famed temple and lost to the Babylonians after 1500 years. Despite this, Nabonidus sent men to locate its ancient foundations and restored it during his reign. It remains the best preserved example of ancient Mesopotamian architecture to this day. The focus of his temple building was primarily within Mesopotamia, but his most famous project was when he set out to rebuild Ehul-Hul, the grand sanctuary of the moon god at Haran in Syria. This city had been destroyed by the Babylonians and Medes when the Assyrians made their last stand there in 610 BC. This reason seems to be why Nabonidus has distaste for Nebuchadnezzar and criticizes him often in his inscriptions. Inscribed on the Cyrus cylinder is a list of accusations against Nabonidus, which are given as the reason for his eventual downfall and the awarding of his empire to Cyrus the Great in 539 BC. Though contested by some scholars, it is stated that Nabonidus did in fact attempt to replace Marduk with Nana as the king of the gods in the Mesopotamian pantheon. This brought him into hostility with the Marduk priesthood, who had taken offense to his temple project at Haran, seeing it as a direct rivalry to the grand ziggurat of Marduk in the temple of Esagila. Nabonidus was accused of oppressing the people of Sumer and Akkad by restructuring the rites of sacred Babylonian cults. This may or may not be true, as it is known that in the final year of his reign, in 539 BC, Nabonidus participated in the Akitu festival, where he laid his hand on the royal Marduk statue, set down his insignia at the temple, and was slapped across the cheek as his custom for his sins. Here he also received an oracle of the glorious future of Babylon under Marduk. It cannot be stated for certain, but the approaching collapse of the empire suggests a disunity among the Babylonians, particularly regarding their religion. The Medes, who until this time had remained in their alliance with Babylon, were in control of Ehul-Hul, but it was retaken by Nabonidus during the strife with the incoming Persians. This was thought to be a provocation that Cyrus used against Babylon when he eventually invaded. Nabonidus claimed to have received a prophecy spoken to him by Marduk about the fall of the Medes and the rise of King Cyrus. This opened the door for him to rebuild the grand temple to Nana there and likely begin the internal conflicts that would see the downfall of his people. By this time, Cyrus had taken his armies westward into Turkey and began a war with the Lydians, who were an ally of Babylon. Herodotus reported this event as another pretense for Cyrus's invasion of Babylon. When he did invade, Cyrus approached Babylon as a liberator and champion of Marduk against Nabonidus' worship of Nana. In 539 BC, a short war of around 30 days was launched by the Persians into the upper regions of Babylonia. A battle between Nabonidus and Cyrus was reported to have taken place at Opis on the eastern banks of the Tigris River. The Persians then took the city of Sippar without a fight, and with several local allies surrounded the city of Babylon. By now in great distress, Nabonidus ordered the statues of the chief gods to be called to Babylon for their safekeeping. However, it is said that no fighting took place when the Persians arrived at Babylon, and Cyrus was welcomed by the priesthood as a new champion of Marduk. Nabonidus was himself captured and taken into exile in Persia to live out the remainder of his days as a prisoner. Thus ended the empire of the Babylonians, with less than a month of war between the zenith of their power over Arabia, Turkey, and Iraq, to a quiet defeat from which no local ruler would have authority again until the 20th century AD. Though brief in its span, the Babylonian Empire was significant in preserving the primordial civilizations and cultures of ancient Mesopotamia, and it's one of the reasons why it can be studied and admired by readers today.